Anything can happen in AFC North football. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Cleveland Browns Thursday night football breakdown. If you've never been here before, welcome. My name is Max. I make these every single week for the Thursday night, the Monday night, and two biggest games on Sunday to give you good information based on coverage data, run scheme metrics, and overall logistical information about the game for your fantasy teams, as well as your higher or lower projections. So if you are new, make sure you hit that subscribe button below and join the family. We're on the road to 7,000 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you, especially if you guys have been watching these videos for the past month and a half. It's crazy to see the growth. Make sure you like this video if you enjoy stuff like this. But without further ado, we're going to start by breaking down the opposing defense coverage matrix. If you've never seen a coverage matrix before, I think you're going to love this. It essentially outlines how much each team plays man coverage, zone coverage, as well as one high and two high safeties against every opponent they have played. And we're going to start with the Browns pass defense because you look at the overall man numbers, right? We're going to refresh this to get the most recent information. You look at the overall man numbers and you see it. Fourth most man coverage in the entire NFL. And then you move to the middle field closed look. So that's one high safety, means usually a lot of cover one, a lot of cover three. The second most in the entire NFL. But it's very, very interesting to note, as much man as the Browns have played the entirety of the year, since week 7, for whatever reason, not a ton of injuries, the Cleveland Browns have not had one football game where they've played man coverage on more than a third of their snaps. Now, when it's zone, it's still a lot of that middle field closed cover 3. Like you can scroll over to the cover 3 rates for the Cleveland Browns. 31%, which is a pretty high dosage for how much little zone they've played all year. But especially recently, it's been 40% plus cover 3 in these last 5 games. I don't know why. I truthfully don't. I don't know if it's a coverage thing. It's a coaching staff thing. It's not really an injury thing, but the Browns have been playing less man recently. When you go into this game, all is kind of thrown to the side in terms of coverage, but it is important to note that on the other side, Russell Wilson, this is the coverage matrix for offense. Russell Wilson, in the 4 starts that he's had, is top 10 in fantasy points per dropback. You can see right here, number 8, fantasy points per dropback against man coverage, as well as top 10 in fantasy points per dropback against, there it is, number 5, against middle field closed look. So regardless of what the Browns do in terms of man zone, it's going to be a ton of middle field closed stuff. That doesn't really change. That's the bottom line. But Russell Wilson is very, very good against man, whether it's 2-man or 1-man or middle field closed coverages, which again is cover 1, cover 3. Russ is very good. But one thing that we have not talked about yet is the weather for the game. You guys see the flag behind me. Part of what I do, if you don't know, is cover the Cleveland Browns. I live in Cleveland. It is supposed to be borderline snowing for this game. It's supposed to be 35 degrees and raining at kickoff. I'll be there. So if you see me, you're a Browns fan, you're watching this game, or a Steelers fan watching this, I'll be there. Say what's up if you see me. But the weather is supposed to be gross. So I kind of lean away from the pass game a little bit, especially because the Browns are allowing the 4th fewest dropbacks in the NFL, about 33.3 per game. And with Russell Wilson, the Steelers had the 6th fewest dropbacks in the NFL. Now, fourth fewest with Russ, 6th fewest overall. That includes the Justin Fields games. They love to run the ball. And we'll talk about run defenses in a minute. But I don't really think it's going to be a lot of passing, really on either end this game, but especially not on the Steelers' end. But when there is passing, we need to look at where teams are being targeted. And when you look at the Cleveland Browns, we'll pull this up really quick. These are the target rates based on alignment. Basically, how often out wide get targeted, how often tight ends get targeted, slot receivers, things like that. The Cleveland Browns, you see here, really no other comparable numbers, but are being targeted at a whopping 43.1%. 43.1% out wide. Now, you probably don't need me to tell you that George Pickens is the main out wide guy, but you got to know the Steelers aren't really ripping the ball out wide too much. They're not really throwing the ball out wide too much. When they do, it's obviously going to George Pickens. He's got 2.59 yards per out run, 0.28 targets per out run, which is a very big number, even though 0.28 doesn't seem like it. And 65.2% of the dropbacks included George Pickens' route on the outside. Now, the Browns are also allowing a lot of first read throws. And to be honest with you, Russell Wilson's very comfortable in the pocket. I don't look into that too much, but it is important to note George Pickens in every single game this year with Russell Wilson has had a 34-plus yard reception, right? 34-plus yard reception. In all but one game the entire year, regardless of who's quarterback, he's had a 20-plus yard reception. So if you're making your picks on this game, you're looking for something to add. I think George Pickens' longest reception is a very, very nice thing. And if you are making picks on the game, remember, you can get free cash to do it with on all of the sites that are in the link below. Underdog will give you a free Jameis Winston projection of him having at least a yard. He's obviously going to have a yard. Sleeper will do the same exact thing with Russell Wilson. He's obviously going to have a yard, especially if that longest completion hits. And then Better will also give you another free pick for Thursday Night Football. Now, you cannot already be on any of these sites, but if you're not on them and you join with code LEADS, LEADS, they will match your first deposit on Sleeper, match your first deposit on Better, and then give you a deposit bonus on Underdog. So it's free cash, free picks. Click the link below if you want to make your picks on this game and you're not on any of these sites or one of these sites. Take advantage, and you can join multiple if you'd like. Just join with code LEADS. That's how you get those sweat-free picks. Regardless, let's go back to the pass defense, and we're going to look at the Pittsburgh Steelers now. So the Steelers, we talked about it last week if you watched my Ravens-Steelers breakdown. They're pretty balanced in what they do in terms of overall coverage, but you see here, middle field closed. They run the most middle field closed in the entire NFL. Like I said, they mix up the man or zone, but that middle field closed, much like the Browns, when you play zone, it's a lot of cover three. It's actually 44% in the NFL. It leads the league. It's pretty ridiculous. A lot of cover three, a lot of one high. They like to load the box, stop the run. We'll talk about their run defense in a minute. Load the box, stop the run, make quarterbacks beat them. Oddly enough, though, Jameis Winston, are you ready for this, guys? In the games that he's started, so that's weeks 8 through 11, Jameis Winston has the fourth most fantasy points per dropback against those middle field close coverages. Jameis can throw the ball against cover 1 and cover 3. That's the bottom line. And you know what? The Steelers are allowing 36.6 dropbacks per game, which is middle of the pack. Like, it's nothing crazy. But the Cleveland Browns with Jameis Winston have the most dropbacks per game in the NFL. 50 dropbacks per game. 50. I just hit the microphone. I was 50. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Very, very balanced in terms of what the Steelers do defensively. But Jameis, when he gets that middle field close look, which he's going to get a lot of, he throws the ball at a ridiculous rate. 0.6 fantasy points per dropback, and he's not a running quarterback. That's pretty good. Like, you look at some of the quarterbacks ahead of him. Herbert, he'll run. Jared Goff won't, but Jared Goff is in a different offense. And then Lamar Jackson. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. He's above guys like Brock Purdy, Bo Nix right now, Kirk Cousins, really every single quarterback in the NFL minus Lamar, Herbert, and Jared Goff. It's ridiculous. Jameis loves his middle field close. Now, it is important to note that when the Steelers are being targeted, like we talked about with those rates for the Cleveland Browns, there really is no tip in terms of what they allow. They're being targeted, at the 20th lowest rate out wide, the 20th lowest rate in line, and the 19th lowest rate to running backs. But 12th highest rate in terms of slot targets. We looked at it last week with Zay Flowers. Didn't have a great game. Very clearly the Steelers' defensive responsibility, especially in the secondary, to take him away. The Browns don't really have anybody you have to take away in the pass game. I guess David Njoku, but if you want to double team him and leave the other guys one-on-one, especially on the inside, I think Jameis is going to take advantage. He showed that in the 3 games that he's played. 3 games that he's played. But when you look at the Steelers being targeted at the 12th highest rate in the entire NFL, you ask, where do the Browns like to throw the football, especially with Jameis? Well, let me tell you, in the games that Jameis has played, there is only one team targeting the slot more than Jameis is. And for some reason, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. There's a lot of Brock Bowers, a lot of Jacoby Myers, but only one team is throwing the ball at a higher rate to the slot than the Browns are. And look at this. A lot of times when you have really high slot rates, like you look at the Falcons, for example, 4th highest slot rate, they're still throwing the ball out wide more. Bears, 6th highest slot rate, they're still throwing the ball out wide more. A lot of times when you have these high slot rates, you're still throwing the ball out wide a little bit more. No, not the Browns. The Browns are throwing the ball to the slot almost a full percentage point more than they are out wide. And obviously, they're really not pumping the ball elsewhere. So you got to ask, who runs the slot routes for the Cleveland Browns? And it's a very interesting thing because Elijah Moore is very clearly the guy in the slot, right? He very clearly runs the most routes from the slot. 52.7% of Jameis's dropbacks have included an Elijah Moore route from the slot. But you look at the overall, like, targets per out run and yards per out run, and they're not bad. 0.25 targets per out run, 1.35 yards per out run. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. It's really not. But David Njoku is also running a bunch of routes from the slot. Jameis isn't really pumping him the ball. But look at Jerry Jeudy. Like 28% of those dropbacks include a Jeudy route from the slot. He has more yards per out run than Elijah Moore. Cedric Tillman's not really running a lot of routes from the slot, but more targets per out run. He's getting targeted more often than Elijah Moore is. 3.58 yards per out run from the slot. So if I'm looking at Browns pass catchers really overall in this game, especially because of the weather, I'm going to look to pick their receptions predictions before I do yards. That's the reality. I think there's going to be a lot of checkdowns. I think we're going to see a ton of cover three, because I don't think they want to leave these guys one-on-one, to be fully honest with you. Ton of cover three, ton of checkdowns, ton of short passes. And I think that's David Njoku and Elijah Moore, to be fully honest with you. But I think Cedric Tillman still makes the most of his opportunities. I really do. I'm not really sure about Jeudy because I'm not really sure where the alignment's going to come. He's also coming off a huge game. Tends to, temper expectations a little bit, especially when you look at wide receiver production. But I think Elijah Moore and David Njoku catches, not yards, catches, is a very interesting thing because the Browns aren't going to run the ball. We'll talk about that in a second. They're not going to run the ball. They can't run the ball, and the Steelers stop the run. That's what they do. They're going to have to pass the ball. Again, wouldn't be surprised if Jameis threw 50-plus times or dropped back 50-plus times, That's what the Browns are averaging with Jameis in there. But let's talk about the run defenses on both sides because I think the Browns' run defense provides a very interesting edge for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, before I talk about anything else, if you guys want my full predictions for player projections, as well as anything you guys want to ride as a community, touchdown scores, all of that stuff will be outlined on X. It's at Loeb's Leads. There'll be a link below, or you can just search it up. All of that stuff goes out all day Thursday on X. So make sure you follow over there. Make sure you turn your notifications on if you really want to see it super fast. Make sure you're following over there to get all that information. Now, let's talk running numbers. Now, the Browns' run defense overall this year has been decent. Here's the thing, though. Since Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah went down, and it was week 8, this team is actually abysmal against the run. They're abysmal against the run. I'm not even going to pull up the numbers. I'm just going to read them to you right here. You can read my face. Since JOK went down week 8 against those Baltimore Ravens, the Browns are allowing the most yards per carry at 6.03, which is ridiculous, the second highest explosive run percentage in the NFL, and the 7th most rush yards per game overall. They can't stop the run with JOK out, and he's still out. Mike Hall's out. This team cannot stop the run right now. That's the bottom line. And even though the Steelers aren't wildly efficient on the ground, actually they are bottom 10 in overall yards per carry, they still run the ball so much to put them in top 10, 8th actually, overall in rush yards per game. 2nd most rush attempts in the entire NFL. I love Najee Harris. I think this is a Najee game. I think Najee could carry the ball 20 times. I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side. I don't think teams are going to be inclined to pass, again, based on the conditions, based on the matchups they have outside, especially if you're the Steelers. I think it's going to be a ground fest for Pittsburgh. So Najee, to me, is a very, very good lead. But I also look at Jaylen Warren. Like, the 4 games with Russell Wilson, Jaylen Warren's had 9+ carries. Jaylen Warren's had 40+ rush yards. I think they're going to lean into him. I really, really do. Even with Cordero Patterson playing a little bit more, he's still been getting a decent amount of carries, decent amount of rush yards. He's an explosive player. He actually played really well against the Browns last year, too. I think we could see a lot of Jaylen Warren. Now, interesting to note about the Steelers' run defense, it just improves our hypothesis, right? The Steelers' run defense is very, very good. Very, very good. They're 4th fewest yards per game overall. In terms of overall yards per carry, they are 5th fewest, and then explosive run percentage, they are 6th fewest. So they're top 10 in pretty much every major statistical category in terms of run defense. The Browns, though, the Browns are horrible on the ground, even with Chubb. These are numbers just with Nick Chubb. 2nd fewest rush yards per game, 3rd fewest rush yards per carry, and 4th lowest explosive run percentage. Offensively, not defensively, offensively. These guys can't run the football right now. And I don't see it changing this week against a team that's going to load the box, stop the run, and essentially dare you to pass. The Steelers are basically going to dare you to pass the football. That's how this game is going to go. Now, I personally think this is a tight game. I think the Browns can do enough through the air to keep this tough. And I honestly think the Browns DBs will make plays on the football. I think Russell Wilson will get plenty of opportunities on the outside, not just with George Pickens, though. Van Jefferson, Mike Williams. I think Browns DBs will make plays. But to finish all this up, I want to walk through the information I just gave you guys just one more time, just in case you missed any of it, right? Browns pass defense, a lot of man-to-man, a lot of one high coverage. But week 7, the Browns have not had a game where they've played man-to-man over a third of their snaps, regardless. Russ is good against that stuff. Browns are allowing not a lot of dropbacks per game. Steelers are not dropping back a ton. They're going to run the ball. So you scroll back down to the run defense right here. The Browns have the second fewest yards per game, third fewest yards per carry, and fourth lowest explosive run percentage. Now, the Steelers defense is going to stop the run. And on the other side, like I said, the Browns cannot stop the run without JOK. They don't have JOK. That's where the edge is for the Steelers. And the Steelers pass defense, a lot of one high. Jameis is good against one high. I think it's going to be a lot of checkdowns, a lot of short passes. 50 dropbacks per game with Jameis is the number that I personally lean into a little bit more. I think he's going to throw the ball a lot. So again, if you're looking at projections there, personally, I like the safety blanket catches like David Njoku, Elijah Moore catches, even Cedric Tillman. But pass attempts, I really don't mind. I think that's the direction the game is going to go. I think the Steelers win this game. My score prediction is 20-10. I think the Steelers win this game, kick a couple field goals. I think the Browns force a turnover, get a short field and score, but I don't really think they're going to move the ball that much. But let me know your guys' score predictions in the comments below. And as always, if you want to make your picks on this game, there's a link below to do so, but you can go there and then click any of these, all of these. If you're not on all of them, get on all of them. It's free cash. Take advantage of that. But I appreciate you guys hopping on. I appreciate you guys watching this one again. Comment your score predictions. Let me know who you think is going to win, and let me know your favorite projections for this game tonight. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time.